Hi, colleagues. It's John Fischetti, along with my dear colleague Scott Imig, and welcome to episode 29 of We Will Get Through This, Transformative Leadership for Disruptive Times. We really are excited to have everyone along in our podcast or podcast here today, our vlog, so to speak, Scott. And it's been a couple of weeks since we had a chance to do this, given everything that's happening. I hope you are doing well.
Hey, John, good to see you. Yes, I am doing well. I think something about this time of year, everything seems to ramp up and it's getting busier and busier and busier. And it's important for us to stop and do these and have these conversations because I have to tell you, I always feel refreshed. I always feel like, a bit of recharged after we have these chats.
Yeah, and I love our audience responses from the people we know and don't know that have come to us thanking us for doing this. Obviously, it's not all that sophisticated, but if our words of wisdom have helped someone on a walk or in a meeting or in some way empower them to take our ideas and make them better, it's been well worth it. And we really appreciate everything everybody else is doing out there to keep things going. We know people listening around the world are in very many different places as we negotiate this pandemic together. Our notion of we will get through this sounded easy about in February and March. It seems a little complicated right now, depending on where you live. How are you coming down on our whole premise for this thing? We're going to get through this, right?
We will certainly get through this. I think at the moment we're unfortunately maybe getting used to this, but we will get through this.
Yeah, I think we're adjusting to how, in those countries which have opened up, how to negotiate the nuances of life with social distancing, with masks, and with the fact it's a long time before we'll be on the other side of whatever this is. Scott, I wanted to offer you today the chance that we might talk about a great loss in education that happened in the last week. We lost Sir Ken Robinson. And for most of you out there, you've been inspired by Ken Robinson by some amazing TED Talks. Probably the number one, I know it's number one in education. God, it might be one of the number one viewings of any YouTube videos since we sort of had you and two merged together. Mm-hmm. Can you remember the first or the most influential either reading or video you've watched of Sir Ken?
Ken Robinson has been such a big player in education for almost as long as I can remember. It's his views, his idea that the fact that he continually brought everything back to the fact that every child is unique and that every child's needs are unique. And he brought everything back to those underlying principles that we all in education espouse and believe, but sometimes we lose sight of. And so it was always nice to have, this guru out here who was writing and speaking so publicly about the importance of not letting conformity and standardization take over, but recognizing almost the creativity and the beauty in every single child in the school.
I love it. Exactly right. And challenging a lot of the policies that during his career and ours put on and possibly fly in the face of what we know about how children learn, or even our ultimate desires for our own kids. One of the things that in the US, for those Australians, when you apply for a job, you got to get sort of 5 referees to write a little letter. And the best question on all of them is, would you want this teacher teaching your own child? And it's similar to, would you want your own child to go to that school? And he challenged us in many ways. Are we consistent for educating all, that we want the same kind of learning for all children that we want for our own? And that's really ultimately, when it comes down to it, what we have not done, given the differences in how we staff and how we fund and how we support schooling in each of the sectors around the world. He called us out, and he did it in entertaining ways. I think his most famous video with the most millions of hits is the one where it's a map of the US and using the famous graphic animation technologies that was pioneered a decade or so ago, takes us on a tour, really challenging the notion of labeling kids falsely and putting them in boxes that take away their individuality and possibly withhold them from their potential. And it was just a shockingly brilliant video that still is profound. I still use in my courses.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. I can't tell you the number of times I've introduced that video to students over the years. It's, as an academic, you're constantly looking for the newest and the best and the most updated research on topics, but sometimes people get it, and he got it, with that video. Um, yep, just a huge loss for the field. And I was actually looking up a bit of information on him the other day, and you see, he was a young man still. He had 70 years old. It would have been nice to have continued to learn from him.
Yep, it feels younger every day, doesn't it? And we
It does.
tributes out to him and his colleagues, and particularly his family. It's, I think those of us who have been in leadership enough or around education enough have really used him as one of those role models, one of those gurus, one of those thought leaders that there's a handful of where the ultimate respect goes out. We're going to finish on that point in a little while. But Scott, one of the things I've done, and I've done it with a couple of leadership teams and organizations I've worked with, and I'm not sure if you've had the chance to read it. I'm not pushing that you get on Amazon and buy it, but a book called The Element. It's relatively thin, and it's one of his earlier works, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm going to tell you the main 2 points. It doesn't mean you shouldn't still read it. And it's just from my perspective. You'll get so much more out of it, I'm sure. But one of the things that comes from this is, and I've used this metaphor to help other people. If we could help people through their growing years and into their adulthood, find where their skill sets meet their passion. So I believe part of the educational journey is to both help people enhance their passion, develop new ones, and be able to honor those by not giving them away, and map that to skill sets that we develop. Some of those are traditional literacy and numeracy. Some of those are new skills of learning things you didn't know, whether that's another language or playing the piano or just being able to say thank you, or things in engineering or English or in any of the disciplines. Where do your skill sets meet your passion? And if you find people who are a little out of whack, usually it's they're doing something well, but they don't really enjoy it. Or they're doing something they enjoy, but not very well. And it's a wonderful opportunity. It's a very Western, egalitarian, or maybe not egalitarian, maybe elitist point of view to say, wouldn't it be great if as you go forward, you're really trying to marry up what you're good at with what you really enjoy? Because so many people feel stuck. And education is about that empowerment, about that opportunity. It's about finding where your passions meet what you really do well. And I have the privilege of attempting to figure that out at this point in my career. But I think that's what we want our leaders to do, is not feel stuck, marry up those skill set and passions. And wouldn't it be great if that became the premise of a school, is that we're going to help you develop your skills and your passions, and we're going to help you put it together. And we need a lot of definitions of that. Like we need 7.5 billion or however many people are now on Earth. We need everybody to find that marrying up of those two.
Yeah, wouldn't that be incredible? As you were talking, I got a little pit in my stomach because I was remembering, all the times where schools have been faced with, perceptions of failure, and in what a lot of schools do and what a lot of leaders do in those situations, not necessarily because they buy into the idea, but because they feel it's the right thing to do at the time, is they double down on things like just maths and reading. And, you can build those skills, but you can destroy some passions if that's what becomes the sum total of your educational system. And so
Totally
I agree
right.
with what you're saying. Imagine a school that honors the passion as much as anything else.
And how much it drills those passions away if they don't conform to what society thinks are the right ones. And that leads to the lack of empowerment, which education really is supposed to be about. One of the disappointing things in New South Wales, Australia, and I'm not trying to call out folks who are stuck having to live with it, but last year, Jeff Masters did a great review of the New South Wales curriculum. And it basically said that we go too wide, we ought to go deeper, and we might need a different kind of assessment system. It's going to be hard to do that. And we probably need to really focus on those key learning areas as opposed to trying to do everything. Because learning, most of us forget what we just crammed anyway. That was a really progressive set of recommendations, but it's been rolled out now under the notion of back to essentials, one, pedagogies, which is really direct instruction, and then unfortunately rolling new, basically end of high school tests we call the HSCs. So when I read that original report and I see where it's going, I think what we're getting is more of the same, not that. And Ken Robinson was somebody who was pushing us very differently. And it just seems a shame we might have lost this opportunity, putting principals at a real, I don't know, opposite, pushing at one another, like magnets when they're the opposite, just arguing with each other. And I think it's really a shame because we might lose this chance to really rethink what schooling's about. In the very first vignette in The Element, Ken talks about observing a girl who's dancing in a classroom, who actually was not doing anything much at all educationally. And when the parents are watching and they're seeing her through like the window of the classroom and just trying to understand that she is gorgeous, incredible, skilled genius of a dancer, but sitting down taking a test, not so much. And she was labeled, and those labels we put on kids and the sorting that we do is, I hate to be this melodramatic, like a crime against humanity educationally. And I think that's my tribute to Ken, is around how do we take those passions, those skill sets, but not fall victim to that means we need another test to determine whether we got them or not.
Exactly right. No, I think that's right on target. So that is a real testament to Ken Robinson's life, is that we're able to look through that lens at policies and procedures and ask ourselves, are we really being true to what we signed up for with these jobs? So John, you said there were two big takeaways for you from The Element, I think that I'm in complete agreement with you that that schools need to be this place that foster passion and marry that passion up with student interests. So I guess the listeners out there, though, they're the people who are in this tug of war. They're the people who are in the tug of war between policy and what those kids in front of them want and what those kids in front of them need. So how do they do it? How do they navigate that tug of war?
Well, I think the one easy one, even it's easy in that nobody can stop you from this. It's not easy to do it. Is that the kind of inspiration Ken Robinson provided to us as that thought leader and that guru in every early childhood, primary, secondary school, university in the world. The current staff, students, and the future ones are looking for inspiration. They're looking for that passion. They're looking for people they want to model. The world right now is tricky because there's politically in some places the opposite of that. And the world's just hard right now. There's storms, there's fires, there's pandemics, there's riots. It's like, what's going on? And in that sense, they're looking for their leader, their principal, their head teacher, their classroom teacher to take on that role of being that positive spirit. It doesn't mean everything's going to go well every day, and it doesn't mean students turn in perfect work and don't need some feedback, but they're looking to that role model. And I think as part of the job description, that could be number one. And that passion then coming through, that we're going to have a great day. We got a lot of clunky pieces of planet Earth right now, but you know what? If we tackle this today and we get smarter and stronger and better, we're going to get to the other side of this. And we'll not only get through this, we'll be better as a result, as long as we can protect the vulnerable from succumbing to a pandemic or anything else that's coming at us. So that's part one, is could we remind ourselves of how much people count on us, not just to make sure we go to meetings so they don't have to, or balance the budget, or make sure the key works in the door, all the management stuff. That leadership stuff is now we got to even double down on what the role modeling is. And I think it's also giving room for people to know that they have someone they can go to discuss their own concerns. So the caring and inspirational and passion-based needs of leaders. There's probably others you have thought of as well. What do you think, Scott? What's another thing that we can do?
Well, one of the things that we often hear from teachers is, I would like to do X, but I can't. And so I think it's exactly what you said. I think the thing that our principals out there who are listening can do is, drop by your teachers' classrooms. Let them know that you really value, if they're in class or if they're on Zoom, let them know that you value what they're doing, and encourage that creative side. Encourage those creative projects, those creative opportunities they're providing for their students, because I think all it takes is just a little bit of a nudge sometimes, and people will take off. And that, you and I work with we work with directors sometimes who each, supervise groups of principals. And it's the exact same thing for those directors. All it takes is just a bit of a nudge to the principal that says, it's okay, take a risk. It's okay. Failure can be okay. It's all right, because you're going to learn from it, and it's not necessarily, and you aren't necessarily going to fail either.
Yep. And for those that are coming back to school or are already back to school, like in our case, what we learned at home is how valuable the moral component of being a teacher is, how young kids love their teachers. They love their teachers, and older kids put up with, but they love them too. They respect them so much. But they don't respect us when we take out our own stress, frustration, or worry on them, just like Charlie Brown's parents don't get hurt. So I think we're going to have to back away from worrying that we're back to school to tell kids what to do and to sit them in rows and give them tests, all the things that we know we might have to do a little of, but not as much of. What we really want to do is really enjoy this opportunity to be together, to learn new things, be inspired, and try to come back tomorrow, and let's keep that up. If we add that together, we're going to create this really alert, curious, positive set of synapses that are going to take us through to whatever those kids want to develop for their own futures. That we're over worried about what we didn't cover or what we lost at home or what we're behind or what's on the test, rather we have this human interaction in school. Mm-hmm. And if we got one really good thing done this week that was a powerful learning that kids were able to own and take with them, that's pretty good. We add that up about 40 weeks of school. That's 40 major things we would have that were new from this school year, either that we're just starting or we're halfway through, depending on where you are. So don't underestimate the value of a teacher. That's what parents missed in many respects, is the beauty of teachers, not just to care for their kids or to get them away so they could go to work, but actually the benefit to their human capacity that teachers bring every day. And if we lose that because of our own discouragement, our own worry, and our own cynicism, or just tiredness, so in many ways we got to reach back in, as an actor must do on the 8th day of doing a play, 8 days in a row and one matinee, and just say, no, we got this. We could be okay. And I know we're talking to ourselves here and our audience who probably is already in the choir, but don't underestimate the power. And to do that, you got to look out for yourself. You got to breathe. You got to take a little weekend time. You got to turn email off. You got to get outside. You got to do all the things the previous 28 episodes have tried to help you do, but not forget that if you're not grounded and you're not centered and you're not hopeful, you can't do any of those other things.
Exactly right. So I guess for our listeners, we want to encourage you to look out for yourself. You get out there, as John said, take care of yourself. And then once you're feeling grounded, give your staff a bit of a pat on the back virtually and let them know what a great job they're doing, and encourage them. Encourage those attempts that they're making to really merge that passion with interest in their classrooms.
Totally.
Yeah. Good. Well, John, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Yeah, it's great to be with you today, Scott. And we thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time. Scott, you want to take us home?
Well, this has been episode 29 of We Will Get Through This. It's hard to believe that we are nearing our 30th episode, and we're very pleased that you've hung in there with us, and we do really enjoy hearing from you. So
yeah, and Scott, thanks for all you're doing in the world that you help lead with the particularly the postgrad students that you're in charge of negotiating them through this time, and all the other staff. You're not only a leader and role model for, but a guide and a light post of hope, because they're looking to you, as you know, and you're able to help them feel that, in fact, we could get through this.
Well, thank you.
All right, we'll see you again soon.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.